You're listening to Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White. I'm one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host and brother Dave. Hey, Dave, how you doing over there?
Thank you for asking. Pretty good. Last night, we went out to see The Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Oh, yeah.
And
a late night
film.
movie.
It was. I fell asleep. Not for very long. It was a midnight movie. I fell asleep for like a good 10 minutes, though, which is incredible because the people behind us did not stop talking. They talked the whole time in like a stage whisper.
I have, you know what? We've talked about this before on the show and the various like things that we've encountered, like when we went to see Fabio Frizzi, when we went to see the Ghost movie. I feel kind of old man about complaining about this sort of thing, but I've seen other people sort of complain about it too. It's almost as though like people watching movies during the pandemic, you know, like first run shit in the comfort of their own home, just kind of completely lost touch with the fact that it's like going to the movies is a communal experience and you got to shut up.
Yeah, like that's the thing. That's like the one thing everybody knows about going to the movie theaters is shut the fuck up. And they were like in their maybe late 40s, early 50s. And like I kept he would be like, I have been watching this for 2 hours and I don't even know what's going on. I wanted to be like, yeah, because you've been fucking talking the whole time.
Yeah,
it's
gotta be a pandemic thing. When I remember it was I don't know, it's probably 15 years ago at this point, but when like the Alamo started to really kind of spread out and become sort of a nationwide thing, their sort of no talking, no phones policy was greeted with a reaction from the public that was like, who are these fucking fascists to tell me but like having been in these like situations and having actually attended a show at one of the Alamos, like, I'll tell you what, man, I fucking appreciate that like crazy. Cause like I saw a dude fucking bust out his phone when I went to see Phantasm. And immediately, like one of the waiters came over and just had a quick word with him, and that thing did not come out again because they
that's what they need. That's what they need at fucking Coolidge Corner because it was distracting. Like because it was really like, what's happening now? Who is she?
Is she gonna die?
It was basically that, and everybody like it wasn't. I'm not gonna say it was packed. It was fucking midnight in Boston, but like. There was a healthy number of people there, and everybody just kind of kept like turning to stare at them. And like when that would happen, the guy would be like, "Oh,
no!" See, what you got to do is it's like on the second night that I went to the Ghost concert, there was a dude with his phone out, like full brightness, like taking pictures and making phone calls and shit. And after a few minutes of this, I was like, what the fuck is going on? And he was like a row ahead of me. So I just grabbed a handful of popcorn and threw it at him.
Nice.
And his fucking wife turned to him and whispered something to him and it went away. So people, if this shit's happening to you, get comfortable with being rude because it's what it takes.
It was nuts. I just like, why did you come to the movie if you're just going to fucking talk to the person next to you the whole time?
Oh yeah. I've been to a couple of like live events too. Like, I've seen a couple of live podcasts where people do the same thing where like, they'll just, it's almost like the setting. It's just another setting for them to be social in. And you know, whatever's happening around them is just kind of circumstantial in spite of the fact that they probably spent like $50+ on this event.
Why'd you spend that much money just to fucking come and to talk to your wife or whatever?
You can go to a
talk
bar,
to your wife at home.
Yeah.
Literally, you can go literally anywhere else. That is the only thing you're not supposed to do. It was obscene.
I know. Yeah. God damn it, people. Just listen. I know. Our listeners are cool, so they don't do that shit. But like, if you're out and about and people be doing this, you know, say something, do something.
Yeah,
it's
throw
well
a
within your
them.
right to make rude people be ashamed of themselves. Yeah. So we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores, and the steady diet of utter garbage that those shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. There's no one else I enjoy chopping it up with more about trashy movies than Dave. Just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram at Bring Me the Axe Pod. Dave's over there at That Werewolf. Yeah, I encourage you to follow us. Give us a follow.
Yes.
You know, we got good content. We got the good shit. You know, because we work on it.
That's true.
Yep. I'm also on TikTok if you do that sort of thing, you know, doing them dances.
He's out there doing the boogaloo, doing the Singapore stomp.
Doing the Charleston in a big fur coat.
With a big hat with a feather in it.
Big straw hat.
Nice.
Yeah, look us up by name over there. And if
Bully.
you don't, that's exactly what I say. And if you don't know, we have another show called 99 Cent Rental where we cover all manner of video store madness on the weeks that Bring Me the Axes off. Our latest episode covering Mommy Dearest is out now. It's a holler. It's a hoot.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever listened to this show and thought, I wish he would yell more?
Yeah,
That's the one.
Listen, I heard they did a lot of impressions. Oh, brother, you don't know the half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's out now, and we'll be back next week with a look at the bugfuck Israeli disco freak out, the Apple.
Oh, yeah.
That one's going to be fun. I do enjoy covering canon shit. Because those are like movies from another planet.
Yeah, this is the canoniest of them all, I would say.
Yeah, when that one, and I'm sure we'll get to it, when that one failed in theaters, Menahem Golan, who is the director of it as well.
Mm-hmm. And he wrote it.
It was like a passion project for him. Like, he was like, this is my fucking Citizen Kane. And when it just exploded on the launch pad, he was like legitimately suicidal.
It was like when Jodorowsky's Dune fell apart.
And he was like, oh, well, off to another project. And everybody else was stuck in Paris. Like, the fuck, dude?
They never spoke again.
No. You can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can look us up over there at patreon.com/bringmetheaxepod. There's a couple of tiers you can join there. Subscribers at the $5 a month tier can look forward to our bi-weekly X-Files rewatch pod, Do You Think I'm Spooky? As well as our monthly Millennium Edition Bring Me the Axe episodes, looking at modern horror in the last 20 or so years. We've got a couple out. Our episode about I Saw the TV Glow is out now, and our episode about Barbarian will be dropping on February 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I liked both of them movies.
Yeah. There's also my bi-weekly DJ show, Radio Free Haddonfield. The weeks when Do You Think I'm Spooky is off. You can expect a surprising mixtape of everything from rock to disco to punk over there. Once again, that's patreon.com/bringmetheaxepod. We've also got some merch.
Mm-hmm.
It's delightful merch. Wonderful designs by Dave.
That's soft t-shirts.
Yep.
Poly cotton blend. Try blend. I don't know what any of that means.
Only the highest quality merch for our listeners.
I did actually I was like, I got to look at all of it though, because I don't want to be slapping my name on some horrible crap.
Right? You got to be conscientious of that shit. So yeah, check the show notes for the link if you want to buy a hoodie, you want to buy a sweatshirt, a t-shirt. Whatever.
Yeah, treat yourself.
Treat yourself for real. When's the last time you treated yourself?
Mm-hmm. Or alternatively, right now things in Los Angeles are not great. So if you don't want to give us your money, donate it. Donate it to the many causes in Los Angeles. I am very saddened by what is happening.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube now. Search us by name and subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So I don't know what you're waiting for.
Yeah, no, I that is free.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anyone in Los Angeles, but it helps me. No, who knows? Maybe it does help someone in Los Angeles.
It might. I doubt it.
Piece of shit CEO
you don't know how the mysticism of the algorithm works. Mm-hmm. But yeah, give us a little 5-star review. We sure appreciate it. If you listen on YouTube, do us a favor, give the episode a like, leave a comment. We love hearing from you guys. Just want to get all that out of the way right at the top of the show because this shit is spooky, man. Here's a taste.
Within this old house live 2 residents. One of them is John Russell, composer, professor. The other has been dead for over 70 years.
Claire, I'd like to talk to you about the house.
Did you die in this house? How did you die?
Whatever it is trying desperately to communicate. What is it in that house, Claire? What is it doing? Why is it trying to reach me? It's a hand. I'm living in your house. Senator, look, I want to show him that. You've got something of the senator's. He wants it back.
John?
What is it you want? What do you want from me?
Many films will frighten you, but only a few can really terrify you. The Changeling, an experience beyond total fear.
Yeah, man, I wish they had made that movie. I want to see that movie.
That's the distillation of this movie, just crushed down into like a nice little 2.5 minute trailer package.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I always remember so fondly, and I remember being so spooked by.
Yeah.
Because, and I've said it before on other episodes of this, where like some of my horror movies don't scare me. However, haunted house movies have a tendency to get under my skin every now and then. They spook me the most. They really kind of leave a lasting impression. And this is one that I remember always being very unsettling. And then I watched the movie for the first time in like a really long time. And I was like, what the fuck was so scary about this to me?
Nothing. This is, I have said before, haunted house and ghost stories are my favorite of the genre. And I too remembered this one very fondly. And I've watched this a bunch of times in the last couple of years. And I sat down to watch it last night and I was like, I'm enjoying watching it, but this movie is not good.
So you texted me and you said that. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to do my notes run. I'll let you know how I feel about it. About 2/3 of the way through, I hit you back in full agreement. I fully recognize this movie as a bad movie, but I still enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah,
I don't want to sound like right off the top here I'm shitting on it, because it's not the movie I remember it, but it's still a movie that I enjoy. It's full of like weird choices and like odd casting. It's also
sloppy and lazy.
Yes, and the thing is like I think one of the things I said that I really liked about it was that I think the mystery is genuinely interesting, but then the fucking end of the movie rolls around and they were just as like, it seems like the filmmakers were just as clueless as I was about how this whole thing was going to wrap up, and so they just kind of roll the whole thing up and burn the house down.
Yeah, everything in this feels like a means to an end. But when you get to the end, they're like, oh, wait, were we supposed to do something here?
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's sort of in the same way that The Omen was the Protestants kind of trying to get in on that sweet Catholic exorcist action. This feels like a Me Too movie as well, where they were like, oh yeah, because like this is right in the middle of hot season for haunted house movies, because like this came out a year after Amityville, which was like a huge success. Like there's a lot of haunted house stories, paranormal stories happening in the 70s as well. And so it feels like something that was just kind of like, okay, boys, we gotta make one of these haunted house movies. Who's got a story?
Yes, and the problem, it is exactly that, and it's the Sentinel thing. It's like you hired a bunch of people who are fully competent filmmakers, and they're all doing whatever it is they do, and they're doing it really well. If all the right parts, they just don't give a shit how they go together.
Right. It's like everybody's doing their own thing, but nobody's talking to one another.
Right, and they don't even really, like, they're like, oh, yeah, I know what a haunted house movie is. It's this, here you go. But then, like, halfway through, it sort of changes track and becomes something else. And then they get to the end, and you're like, this feels like a totally different movie at this point.
Right.
Because it takes a weird tone shift at the end. We're like, why is the house on fire?
Oh,
what
God. I can't wait to talk about the end, because it is such a It's very much them just kind of like throwing up their hands and they're just being like, I don't fucking know.
No, you know what that is? That's the answer to the question of, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do with this giant facade of a house?
True.
That's what that is.
Yeah, because as it turns out, that house the exteriors of that house did not exist. They built it up around an existing property.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the interiors were shot on a set. Which makes perfect sense.
It's impressive. Like it looks very real.
Oh, yeah,
I think you can tell from certain angles, you can tell that it's not a real house.
There are a couple of times, I don't know about the exteriors, but there's a couple of times on the interiors where you can tell where it's just, there's no ceiling in a lot of these rooms because that's where the lighting rigs were. But
yeah, it's like no matter how fucking rich and fancy you are, nobody has ceilings that high.
Right. So let's talk some facts here.
Yes.
The year was 1980, year of our Lord.
The old wheelhouse, back in the wheelhouse.
Back in the sweet spot, 80 to 82, baby. So here were some other movies that were released in 1980. Altered States was released in 1980.
Weird movie.
It's a film I enjoy. You got to check it out. Also in 1980, Anthropophagus.
Gross movie.
Yeah, where you can watch George Eastman eat a baby in silhouette.
Mm-hmm. You sure can.
That was, I think, what was it? I think we were talking about it in the Barbarian episode that we just recorded. There's like actors who've kind of ruined, like you can't look at them the same way after a certain role. And I believe
George Eastman for you.
This is George Eastman for me.
I mean, also, I believe in Absurd, he eats his own intestines.
Yeah, well, he probably does it in that because it's just a stupid movie, but that's how Anthropophagus ends. They axe him in the stomach and then he grabs his intestines and eats them.
Amazing.
That's a real gross fucking movie, man.
It is. That one's even a little much for me.
Also, in 1980, The Babysitter came out, which was a TV movie directed by this movie's director.
It is not good.
It's also got Shatner in it. I can't remember who the co-star is. Shatner's co-star.
I want to say Elizabeth Montgomery, but it's not. It's someone younger.
No. It's definitely a TV person. Was it? Is it Patty Duke? No, it's not Patty Duke. I don't fucking know. Anyways, Don't Answer the Phone came out in 1980 as well.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, I've got it. I have not watched it.
I think I sent it to you. I think
you sent that one to me, yeah.
Yeah, it's not good.
And then rounding out 1980, here's another Joe D'Amato hit, Erotic Nights of the Living Dead.
Ooh. Yeah, that's one I won't even touch.
It's not good. It's not a good movie. So let's talk cast and crew, shall we? We got our director, Peter Medak.
A man you just can't pin down.
Jesus Christ. Craziest career between TV, advertisements, and movies. I'm sure he did some music videos at some point as well.
He definitely did.
This guy was fucking everywhere.
I told you, he throw in a couple porn movies and he has done everything. I know. He was covered it all.
It's like a exploitation movie EGOT, basically. Mm-hmm. He directed episodes of The Wire, Homicide: Life on the Streets, Fairy Tale Theater, Breaking Bad. Like, this guy has done fucking everything between the 70s and like really into the 90s. He slows down about 20 years ago.
But he also did The Craze, Species 2, Romeo Must Die,
Romeo Must Die,
DMX and Jet Li.
I have both of those as my movie titles because like those are good fucking movies.
I don't know about Romeo's Bleeding.
Right.
Okay, no, I'm different. Yeah.
Romeo's Bleeding is a great noir movie. Craze is okay, but
that's because they're not particularly interesting as figures.
There's another Craze biopic that has Tom Hardy playing both of them. That one's much better. Yeah, you could tell watching this movie that he had aspirations to sort of do more. There are very, very cool stylistic touches that just scream young director throughout this movie that I love that I want to point out. And I'll point them out too. I've got them all noted and it's all like weird camera angles and shit.
Well, he's got an incredible DP on this.
Oh yeah.
Is that John? Is it John? It's like Coquelin or something like that.
Okay.
He did Straw Dogs. He did Wuthering Heights. He did The Oblong Box. Like he's just just like everybody else on this movie. He's a journeyman guy who's just like out there working in Hollywood, doing what you got to do to make a fucking paycheck. And that's why they're all over the place with the story. It's like they're not like, it's, this is maybe a little bit of a different era. Like you had auteurs. This is sort of the emergence of like new American cinema was like 5 or 6 years earlier. He is not one of them. And there were like anyone who wasn't Steven Spielberg or like, William Friedkin, you just sort of made movies. You just did whatever the studio gave you.
Yeah.
To do. And that's what all of these people do. So there's no passion behind this. There's like not a lot of coherence to the story. They're just like, here you go. I gave you what you asked for.
Right. They wanted a haunted house movie. He's going to give you a goddamn haunted house movie.
And they all do it. They're doing their job to the best of their abilities, and it's totally adequate. But it's like adequate's not great.
Right.
It's just adequate.
I know, and that's wild. Given that, like, we've got a real like heavy hitter actor like leading the show here with,
which is the weirdest fucking casting choice in the entire movie.
He is legit a bizarre casting choice. George C. Scott, gravel-voiced icon of cinema, who seemed to be perpetually 75 years old. Mm-hmm. You've seen him from a low-angle perspective in Franklin J. Schaffner's Patton, in black and white in Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove, and memed for all time, screaming and crying at the movie screen in Paul Schrader's Hardcore.
I love Hardcore.
Hardcore's a great fucking movie. That's probably one of my favorite Paul Schrader's and definitely one of my favorite George C. Scott movies. It is a grimy...
I'm not even a Paul Schrader fan. I think the movie is great.
I think there is something so nihilistic about Schrader's movies.
Yeah, because he's a total scumbag.
Like I watched Rolling Thunder a few months ago because I don't think I'd ever actually seen Rolling Thunder, and I love it.
Is that the trucker one?
What's that?
Is that the trucker movie?
No, that's. Are you thinking about Convoy? That's because that's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Straw Dogs guy. Why am I drawing a blank on that? Anyways,
John something.
No, it's William Devane is a POW with Tommy Lee Jones, who is returns home after years.
Peckinpah? Is it Sam Peckinpah did Straw Dogs?
Peckinpah is the one who did Straw Dogs. He did Convoy. No, and so in that one he's just got like horrible PTSD from being a POW. And nice. He is essentially like victimized by some like shitbag Dixie mafia types. And so he just decides to kill them all. And it's a revenge movie, but where most revenge movies have this kind of like dig two graves moralizing about it, that one's general theme is like, no. Revenge is good, actually. Just kill everybody.
I am on board for that. I think that sounds wonderful.
It has a fucking gnarly ending. It's really great.
It's kind of like Southern Comfort, where they're like, well, this is terrible. We're locked down here. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to kill all these fucking hillbillies. That's what we're going to do.
Yep. Gosh, shit, man. That's a fucking great movie too. We've also got George C. Scott's wife, Trish Vanderveer.
Now, here's my theory. I know that this is not correct because there's no fucking way this would have happened. But like in my head, I was like, did they just really want Trish Vanderveer? And she was like, okay, but you got to take my husband too.
They worked together a lot,
especially around this time too, because they were in Day of the Dolphin together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but his fame far exceeded hers, so I know that that's not what happened. But like, I just cannot understand why they were like, George C. Scott is the right person. For
it could have been the other way around because. This, like, again, this is one of those movies that, like, during pre-production, it had this kind of like musical chairs quality of talent. So, like, I don't know who else was sort of up for the role of John Russell, but I'm
guessing whoever it was, they were 30 years younger.
They must have been, but like there were several directors who were in and then out because they just didn't see eye to eye with the producers and stuff. So I kind of imagine that like eventually they just sort of were like people were coming and going and he was just the one that stuck for some reason. And so they had to do their best to convince you that he was the father of like an 8-year-old girl.
It's so obvious that this character was meant to be like 45.
Probably, yeah. Anyways, Trish won a Canadian Genie Award for this very movie. George C. Scott did too. Best foreign actors.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess technically.
Her career is fairly short, appearing in movies produced in the 70s along with her husband, whom she married until his death, until 1999. She's probably best known for her role in this movie, but also The Hearse, which was also released in 1980. I watched that one the other night. Buh.
She's in a bunch of TV movies too.
Yeah, that seemed to be her kind of bread and butter. Like Hollywood, like silver screen shit, just like wasn't her speed. But like that movie may as well be a made for TV movie. It has all of the characteristics of it. It's like this movie, but like really, really, really boring.
She's a Susan Day George type.
I was gonna say
that's what I would label her.
Like constantly showing up in movies together. It's like Christopher and yeah. Not Susan Day. Linda Day George?
Linda Day George, yeah.
Yeah.
Linda?
Like they're just always on vacation together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And rounded out, we got Melvin Douglas as seen in James Whale's magnificent The Old Dark House.
I love him in that movie, and I love that movie.
Yep.
He's fine in this.
Do check out our episode about that one. That's a great one. That's one of my favorite episodes of ours. Douglas was one of the silver screen's finest leading men, and this movie falls very late in his career. He's going to die a year later in 1981 following his final performance in John Irvin's Ghost Story. Yeah, that's a fine movie.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It reminds me of it's like Ghost Story, the Ted Kennedy story. That's basically that.
Yes. Oh no. So we got some taglines here, and I hate them.
Yeah,
but it's tagline season. Here we go. How did you die, Joseph? Did you die in this house? Why do you remain?
Too many fucking questions. All right, it's too many words. You got to be punchy.
I know.
Okay.
I know. You got to hit them. You got to hit them real short because they're just going to walk by this fucking poster.
Yeah, this is a tagline. I don't know the answer.
Here's another one. First, The Exorcist. Then, The Omen. Now, The Changeling.
I think this is a weird choice because it is essentially trying to associate this movie, which is pretty sort of religious, with two explicitly religious films.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, hey, you liked those other Satan movies. What about this one? Oh, by the way, there's no Satan in this one.
Oh, but there should have been.
Oh man, this movie would have been fucking awesome with Satan. Anyways, okay, so I got a couple more, but we're going international with this one.
Okay.
All right, because they're fucking hilarious translated into English. Here we go. Gritos de horror a la medianoche. Any guesses?
Yeah.
Cries of horror at midnight.
I love it. See, that's the one you should have gone.
Leave it to the Spanish. And then here's the last ones. C'est une histoire vraie. It means it's a true story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Loosey goosey with true, I guess.
Yeah. So speaking on based on a true story, this is based on the most dubious true story as told by the movie's writer, Russell Hunter. Now,
it's some real campfire bullshit.
I am a sucker for a ghost story.
Hey,
for
me
a
too.
haunted house movie. I fucking love it. I read this story and I was like, that's the dumbest bullshit I've ever heard.
Yep.
Especially since Russell Hunter has never produced any evidence that any of the shit he found is actually in his possession.
Yeah, he really gilds the lily about as hard as you can. You're like,
God,
okay, this is sounding a little unrealistic at this point.
Absurd. Here we go. So Hunter's story takes place in Colorado when he, then a composer for CBS TV, moved out there to help his parents with I think their ski lodge that they were running, but also to sort of give himself a little space to just kind of compose and write music.
Must be nice.
The movie mirrors his claims right down to allegedly finding the journal of a sickly child in this he lives in basically the same story. He lives in this locally historical house that's kind of kept up by the local historical society. And so he's in there and he finds the notebook and shit about this sickly child who was kept in isolation by his parents. And then all sorts of spooky shit is happening. Doors are opening and closing. Faucets are turning on. Lights are flashing. Apparently a window broke and cut his wrist or something like that.
See, you're overplaying it, buddy.
Yeah. And so he did what any rational person, any normal man would do.
And
He held a seance.
Yep.
And just like in the movie, it revealed an insidious plot. About basically it's the plot of the movie that was revealed to him. Unsurprisingly, though, the story doesn't really add up from a historical perspective.
Or in the movie.
Investigators have looked into this story, found no evidence that any such people or events took place there. The man whom the house is named after, Henry Treat Rogers, had no children, and it's not even clear if anyone but Russell Hunter saw any such journal.
Yeah.
But
this is starting to sound a little Golden Plates to me.
Yeah, but right. Dumb. And so the it's just that, like, what was the big sort of like national ghost story at the time?
This is not, what is this?
This went into production in 1978.
Oh, well, Amityville.
Right. And so
listen, everybody, I need you to understand this. Amityville Horror is the template for every modern horror story you've ever heard. Every haunting story. It is heavily, heavily influenced by that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just like there was a period of time, like, I don't know, back when if the movies, like maybe like 10, 15 years ago, if the movies were not a remake, then it was definitely based on a true story. Right down to that movie, I think it was called Primeval. Do you remember that one about the killer crocodile?
Ooh, I love a killer animal.
And like all the posters were like based on the true story of the deadliest serial killer in the world. And I was like, what is this movie? And I looked it up and I'm like, a fucking alligator?
Like that's not.
I was like, that's not a serial killer.
It's not a serial killer.
But yeah, like
you've lied to me too many times.
It's just Hollywood being Hollywood. You know, it had to be based on a true story. So this fucking dude just came up with something. It sounds like.
And the weird thing is that the number of times the word contrivance shows up in my notes is wild. But it's that from top to bottom. And the thing that by doing that, they sort of glance over the actual like true life thing of people like hiding their either disabled or they're sort of maladapted children away, or adults or whatever. Like that was a thing that really happened. And to a certain extent still does, but much, much less so. And so it's like, or like swapping out children, like one of them would die and you don't want people to know because you're probably Catholic and Irish. So you got to lie about everything and don't tell anybody anything. And so like that shit happened a lot. That's your fucking story.
I know. But yeah, dovetailing neatly with that remark, a changeling is a supernatural being derived from various folklores, typically around Europe, which allege that the original person, usually a child, was taken by a spectral being and replaced with one of their own. In medieval Europe, it was usually the devil that switched out kids because he'd be like that. But in England, Scotland, and Ireland, it was usually fairies that took the
kids. The fae.
The fair folk.
Now, did they ever actually say why it's called the Changeling in the movie?
He actually says, well, yeah, because that's what happens is the key.
Well, no, I mean, like, I know why it's called the Changeling, but like, I don't remember him actually explicitly saying this is what that word means. Because in 1980, not that many people
ever do that. He does. John Russell actually does say that to the senator towards the
which is
end,
amazing.
But they never broach the topic.
For a movie that loves to beat you over the head with an explanation, they just skip over what would have been like the coolest moment in the movie.
Oh, I know. And all it would have taken is like 30 seconds of exposition.
Yeah, it's a great title and it fits so perfectly, and you just breeze by it.
Yeah. So lastly, in Scandinavia, word on the street was that trolls took kids because they preferred that their own children have human upbringings. Now, the sort of anthropological belief is that changeling children were often poorly behaved or exhibited neurodivergent qualities or were developmentally disabled, which is, people would be like, oh, well, the devil gave me this brat, that sort of thing.
Like, yeah, sorry, Steve. It was your bad seed that did it.
Your genetics suck. The word oaf is derived from changeling children.
Did you read the book that recently, what's his name? Lavallee is his last name. they made I think a show about it.
Oh, the guy who wrote the Ballad of Black Tom.
Yeah, that guy.
I've not. Goddamn,
So
I loved that.
I didn't see the show. I liked the book a lot, and it is about like it takes the Norwegian version of the tale and sort of applies it in kind of like black family.
No shit. Like that guy's
it's really good.
That guy's got a thing and it's working for him.
Yeah, he's a very good writer.
Yeah, man, that's fucking great. No, I got to check that out. Yeah. So also, this is Joshua Jackson's first role.
Yeah, his mom was the AD.
Yep, he was just a little tiny baby.
Yeah, a little pacey, pacey on the set.
Yep. Also, this is Dame Nev Campbell's favorite scary movie.
Okay,
The Queen herself loves.
You
this
gotta
movie.
pay her what she's worth.
Give Nev Campbell what she wants.
Sorry, I'm taking swipes at you, internet.
And lastly, my last comment. Lamberto Bava directed something for Italian TV in 1987 called Until Death that was sold in international markets as a sequel to this movie.
Weird.
I know.
Is that I think that came out in a box set recently.
Yeah, I'm sure. The script was unsurprisingly, by Dardano Sacchetti.
I won't believe it.
Busiest man in Rome.
He was cranking them out 2 a day.
Just, guys, I need scripts, amigos.
I don't have much, but I do. So apparently, George C. Scott is one of 3 actors to have refused an Oscar.
Yeah.
And he's actually really the only one to ever really refuse it.
Yeah,
because
right, and his reasoning is really weird. It's like
I think it's respectable.
I think so too. Like his whole thing is like, this isn't a fucking contest, guys. We're out here acting. This is a craft.
Yeah. Take this shit seriously. What do I always say?
This gold
Take
shit
your
out
job
of my fucking
seriously.
face.
Yeah, the other 2, Dudley Nichols is, I guess, a screenwriter from I think the 30s. I've never heard of him. His was a boycott. And he ultimately did accept it like several years later. And the other one is Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando is the other one.
Yeah, but he didn't reject it. He just let Sacheen Littlefeather accept it.
Yeah.
And then John Wayne said a bunch of really shitty things about her, because he's a good American man.
Fuck John Wayne.
I'm glad he's
stupid
dead.
Mouth.
I'm glad he's dead.
God damn it.
You're an asshole, Marion. Glad you're dead. Well. Oh, okay. Here's a fun one. I read a thing that said so, like, supposedly the screenwriters reviewed hundreds of newspaper articles, books, and over 1,000 case studies. Yeah, of paranormal encounters in order to write this movie. Now, I find that really hard to believe because in 1980, locating that many things related to paranormal experiences would have been extremely difficult. It would be difficult to do that now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that you would have had to have gone through like university archives and stuff like that, because that's really where that stuff was happening. There weren't like, I mean, there were like societies for psychical research and stuff like that, but it wasn't like now where, every little town's got like 5 little ghost hunting clubs.
Yeah, and even now, like, you wouldn't find that many. So it's like, look, you guys took the one story and you adapted it into a screenplay, a really sloppy screenplay. Let's let's call it what it is.
Then again, back then, like this was the hot shit. Like In Search Of was on. Like remember,
Yeah.
Mom was really tapped into this stuff too.
Yeah, but that's 1,000 case studies. I'm gonna guess there
that
aren't
is a
even 1,000 case
a
studies.
Ridiculous claim, like just patently stupid.
There it is again. I gotta gild that lily. So yeah, I feel like I came away from this one just broadly being like, I think if this script were written by a more talented screenwriter or someone who was like familiar with horror or familiar with like gothic horror, this movie would have been really fucking good.
Right. I would like to know, because it is like, because John Russell's not a writer. He's a musician.
Also a weird
there's
miss.
2 other writer credits on this, who I'm sure took what was essentially like an outline.
Well, so one is the guy who wrote the short story. Or who made up the story or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's why John Russell is a musician. Because I was also like, why is he a musician? There's no real reason for that. And I think it's just because in the original story, What's-His-Face was a composer.
Yeah.
That's probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a movie about his experience.
Right. So it's like, you're so lazy that you can't, like, him being a writer would have been a better choice. But as Michael pointed out to me when I said that, he was like, yeah, but didn't The Shining come out this same year? And I was like, oh, okay, maybe they didn't want to be kind of duplicative. But yeah, I think it's all, they have all the pieces. They just don't really put them. It's not like they can't. It's like they just didn't really feel like it.
No.
And I think what set me off feeling less generous about this movie might have been the reviews.
Okay.
Which are not that great.
Which is interesting because like this movie, and I don't think it's become a sort of victim of the kind of like the way that kind of like horror fans have a tendency to canonize every title. Like it has a pretty good score overall through like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I mean, those are all, well, Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, for that matter, they're going to be overweighted by modern reviews.
Okay.
And I will say, and I do not mean this to be shitty, but like the people that they admit to Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, it's just a lot of bloggers.
Yeah.
And so these are not people that are professional writers. These are not people that are professional critics. And I don't mean that to be shady. It's just like, there's a difference between like professionally critically evaluating a movie and writing a review of it on your blog.
Right.
And I think that's what's going to overweight it in favor, especially the number of horror blogs that are reviewing things, which is usually, I would say, a benefit because you know, a lot of the times critics shit on horror movies because they don't like the genre. And so it makes sense that someone who actually does like the genre should review it and then tell me.
True.
Having said that, I am really surprised by the number of times I'm like, hey, here's what Vincent Canby thought of this movie. And I read the thing and I'm like, Vincent Canby is probably right. Like
I know there's so many times you read off a review that's like very, very critical of the movie. And I'm like, I have a hard time disagreeing with that.
Yep. And I'm about to tell you those again, basically.
Okay.
I'm going to hit you with the Boston Globe.
Oh, my favorite paper of record.
Yes, my hometown rag, if you will. By the time the film stumbles through its incredible exposition and wild-eyed explanations, it's apparent that Medak has fallen through a familiar trapdoor. He takes the invisible mysteries of sounds that go bump in the night and makes them literal. He forgets the cardinal rule of terror. Let the audience create the horror in their own imagination. That, I think, is a succinct and exact review of this movie.
I'm gonna give you that because that is one of my main criticisms with this one and why I think it kind of whiffs on the scares is because like it feels compelled to be like this is the sound that you're hearing instead of just giving it to you and letting you fill in the blanks.
They rush to get you there too.
Yeah.
Like they're not even going to let you sit with it for like 5 seconds. They rush to tell you exactly what it is, even when it's supernatural.
Right.
Well, Vinny Canby, here we go.
There we go.
Neither the screenplay nor Mr. Medic's direction is bad in any obvious way, but it's never for a moment interesting. In some mysterious fashion, the filmmakers have managed to put together a movie that, as you watch it, gives you the impression you're seeing the synopsis of some other movie. Mm-hmm.
Again, like here's the thing. I love Vincent Canby.
I do too.
Dude tells it like it is, but like again, like yeah, that's a very fair criticism of this movie.
And the last one is Chicago Tribune. It is Larry Cart. I don't know why what's his face didn't do it, but a little less explanation, a little less of the mood music that constantly tries to nudge our emotions, and The Changeling could have been special. But instead, what we get is a thriller that seems to have been made by people who dipped one toe into the mysterious and then scuttled to the shore of reason. And I'm not cherry picking. I mean, I'm picking the ones that I usually, like the papers I usually pick because they're the biggest ones.
Right. These are the names that keep coming up in our episodes.
Yeah, because these are the papers of record, and for better or worse. And so it's not like I'm picking these ones that are supporting my arguments. I am picking these before I even watch the movie. And so this was basically the consensus was like, it's fine, but like they just don't seem to care about what they're doing. And they don't care if you care about what they're doing.
Or they're a little embarrassed a little too embarrassed to fully commit.
Yeah. Or like either that or like they think the audience is not going to understand sort of abstract things. And so they're just like, no, it's here. This is why the water sound is. And it's like, Jesus Christ, give me a minute.
I know.
Let me try to enjoy a scare.
I will say,
yeah,
I'm going to give it this, though. The soundtrack to this movie is pretty fucking good.
Oh, Ken Weinberg. Yes, this is a very good soundtrack. Yeah. Even people who were a little bit more generous with it were still just like, it's okay. It's fine. It's a ghost story. If you've seen one, you've seen them all.
Yeah, it's not really a standout picture, even in that sort of that little niche of horror, like the haunted house movie.
Yeah. Like I think they do a decent job at establishing this atmosphere, but then they kind of bend over backwards to explain why the atmosphere is spooky. So like they're just constantly undermining their thing. Like, and then halfway through it becomes like a total it's not a different story, but it's a more traditional mystery.
Yeah, it's a murder mystery.
And then they sort of like abandon the supernatural a little bit more while also somehow digging into it a lot harder in a way that doesn't make any sense and is sort of like incoherent.
Oh, right. And it's almost like they get to the end and they're like, oh shit, that's right. This is a fucking ghost movie. We gotta make some weird shit happen. And like weird shit happens. So.
Yeah, it's very strange. And I love a gothic movie. I love a ghost story. I just think that they kind of really phone it in.
I do not disagree with that.
It's like kind of like when we watch The Hitcher, you're like, oh, I know that whoever made this doesn't like these movies.
Yeah.
Because this movie doesn't make any sense and it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we?
We must.
We open on a snowy road in the mountains of upstate New York.
Or as I call it, Canada.
Right. It's November 27th for some reason. John Russell and his wife and young daughter are pushing their...
And his British wife. Is she British or is that just a mid-Atlantic? I think a really bold mid-Atlantic accent.
She's an English actress.
Okay.
Pushing their broken down car up the road a ways when they suddenly come upon a phone booth in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yep. Look, I got a lot to say about this whole opening. First of all, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Why does George C. Scott have an 8-year-old daughter? This man is 80 years old.
I know. And it's something, I don't know. They don't even like make an attempt to sort of like age him down or anything like that.
No. And why you can't age him down. Yeah, it is so bizarre. And then like, I don't want to blame the victim here, but this doesn't seem like the ideal place to have a snowball fight or any other snow-based shenanigans for that matter.
I know. So John goes to call a tow truck while his family plays in the snow. We're just going to breeze by the fact that there is a phone booth in the middle of nowhere on this very isolated road. Was this a thing? We're old enough to remember phone booths and shit, but they always seemed to be in places where there were likely to be people. This is a phone booth on the middle of a barren, empty mountain.
Yeah, it's like a state road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. It's very convenient. And I think that sets the stage for the rest of the movie where they're like, I don't know, we have to get from A to C. The phone booth is on the side of the fucking road.
There is so much shit in this movie that is there just to push this plot along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So up the road a piece comes another car, while in the other direction, a giant dump truck comes barreling along.
Yeah. Can you say Final Destination?
They are telegraphing what is about to happen.
Yeah.
In slow-mo, John watches the car slip and slide across the road, and the dump truck desperately try to avoid it. But in the process of evading, it plows into John's car, which slams into his family in the snowbank.
So look, I know this is supposed to be a horrific accident scene. And to be fair, it's pretty bad in the movie.
Surprisingly shocking. Like you don't see anything, but like you catch a glimpse.
You see the car hit
the car like hitting the family, and it's like, oh.
And yet I cannot help but feel like it is a confluence of things that makes this happen. And it's like the busboy drops a banana peel and then the waiter slips on the banana peel. And the next thing you know, everyone's covered in banana cream pies, except in this case, banana cream pies is George C. Scott's 8-year-old daughter. It's silly.
It's like that video with the volleyball player you sent me today. It's just like a compounding series of tragedies.
It really is. It's very wacky in a way you don't expect, and in a way you don't see too often, to be honest. And I love it.
So sometime later, John walks the streets of New York City to his apartment where he's boxing up his belongings and leaving home.
Yeah, and his I guess housekeeper comes in, and her lipstick is what I would call gauche as shit. It is whore red.
She did her own makeup before
it's amazing. She's like, I'm gonna be famous.
They're gonna remember me.
So and I do.
You did. She stands out, man.
Yeah.
He flashes back to a memory of his daughter throwing a rubber ball to him as he plays piano. In the present, that very ball falls from one of the boxes. The house is shot from bizarre camera angles using anamorphic lenses which distort the shape of the room. And they're going to do it.
This is the cool shit that they do.
They're going to do it a lot in this movie. I fucking love it. There's other movies that have done it. I feel like they did it a lot in Burnt Offerings, though I might be remembering that wrong, but it's just, it is a way.
No, they do.
It is a way to make tight little interior spots look very uncanny. Just the way that everything sort of like warps around the edges. It's such a cool effect.
Well, that's a weird thing because, you know, they shoot in these mansions, or what's supposed to be a mansion. And in every case, it's like, yeah, it's a mansion, it's sprawling, but you forget the rooms in these mansions are very, very small.
Yeah.
And so they make them seem a lot bigger than they really are.
Like
this
cavernous.
one's aping. Yeah, this one's aping Burnt Offerings quite a bit, I think, as most haunted house movies do.
As they should.
I want to say John is super broken up about the loss of his daughter in this movie. He couldn't give a shit about the loss of his wife. She never comes up again.
It never does. He does talk about his daughter a little bit. Wife not mentioned once.
Yeah, he's like, a child is precious, but wives, they're a dime a dozen.
I've had 4 from now on.
Seriously. And the next scene, they're like, well, John, it's been over 4 months. Don't you think it's time to get over it? Yeah. Have you met my friend Claire?
So in Seattle, John visits with some friends, lamenting his family, getting settled for his new gig as a teacher at the university. His friends offer their place for John to stay at while he gets settled, and he tells them he needs to find a house to lock himself away in and work.
Just a cozy little cabin somewhere.
Right. Just a little townhouse, nothing fancy. Mm-hmm. At a rundown old Seattle estate, he is met by Claire Norman from the Historical Society, who takes him up to the spooky-ass house.
I love that this is their solution, that, hey, the Historical Society has lots of houses. I bet they'd love to let you live in one. Because that's how it works, right?
I was like, can you do that?
No, you can't do that. That's not how it works at all. This is a movie that is clearly written by someone who knows nothing about historical preservation. Take that from someone who does know quite a bit about historical preservation.
Get under your skin.
It does a lot.
So, and also like this scene, this sort of setup on the way up to the house also reminded me of The Haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, between Burnt Offerings and The Haunting, those are your sort of like haunted house.
Yeah. So inside the place is cavernous and massive. Key among the furnishing left in the house is an old piano. As George settles in, we get a panning shots and a dolly shot of the halls as John plays.
Fucking love this part. Oh. This is another one of those moments where it is gliding through, and thank God they did use the dolly, because like the rest of this movie it's a Panaglide, probably, maybe.
Maybe this went into
because it's a little herky-jerky
when the Panaglide was brand new, and I will say that the handheld stuff is very jerky. The same way that the handheld stuff in like Black Christmas is. So I'm guessing probably not. But yeah, there's most of the time it's just a fixed camera, a lot of movement just like on a tripod. But there is some like really just cool dolly work in this.
And it does, because you're going into a haunted house movie. This is a ghost story. And again, this movie is going to beat you over the head with absolutely everything. This is one of the few times where it's this really subtle, like it conveys ghostly presence without slapping you in the face with it.
Yeah.
And it's very cool.
Yep. So, like, what was I say? Also, Medak is working the hell out of the anamorphic lens. Like, every time we get a tour of the house, he's using that. John notices a single key on the piano that makes no sound as he plays. When he gets up to attend to some house business, we pan back to the piano. An unseen hand plays that same key. which rings out.
Mysterious. Real mysterious.
Ooh,
Guess what? Doesn't matter.
So spooky.
Never coming back to that. Doesn't matter.
At university, John arrives to his hall to a much more crowded auditorium than he was expecting.
Look, this is a man who is there to teach, quote, advanced musical form. I find it very hard to believe that all these young people are just fucking knocking one another out of the way, climbing over each other to get into this classical composer's lecture series.
Standing room only. They want to hear this guy play. Holy shit! Is this John? I can't remember the real writer, because he was a musician also. Yeah, this is him just feeling himself.
Yeah, you'd think that someone was just like, hey, the fucking Rolling Stones are teaching a course today. You've got to get in there. There are like 100 people in this lecture hall, and there's supposed to be like 20. And then he's like, well, I don't remember this many people registering for this class. And they explode, knee slapping, howling at his jokes. Old George C. Scott's a real cut up.
He's just killing.
Oh, it is bizarre because he is such a gruff, like humor. He's a good actor. He's a very good actor, and obviously that's not a new take, but like comedy is not his thing.
No. He is a very serious man. Although
he does not have a face for comedy.
He is pretty funny in Strangelove, so he's got it in him. So he sits and he plays a piece. And this location, did you know this was the same university that was used for the locations in Prom Night?
I did, because it's written by the same person.
No kidding. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Same writer.
So then we cut
Which is amazing, because Prom Night, also a very basic film, stupid as hell, and I love the shit out of it.
Oh, God, do I love that movie.
Like, you're punching above your weight, man. You should have just stuck with what you know.
Right. So we cut to a large orchestra in a theater, which is playing the same piece that he was just playing. John sits among the audience. After the performance, he mingles among the attendees, and he runs into Claire again, with her mother in tow.
Her mother is a weird addition because she just sort of pops up. She's just there for a lot of stuff. Maybe because they're like, I don't know, we can't just have them talking to each other, because there's actually a limited number of characters in this movie. There's a shitload of people, but there's a limited number of characters.
Yeah. Yeah, because everybody sort of pops their head in periodically to just kind of like deliver a line or just to do a quick.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you needed someone who wasn't Trish Vanderveer. Here I am.
Because like right at the top of the credits, they're like starring John Colicos. And I'm like, what? The guy's in the movie for like a couple of minutes. Yeah. Jean Marsh, she plays his wife at the very beginning. She gets fucking top billing.
Yep. Well, I think she was quite famous though, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. That was the reason that they put her on the Colicos. I don't know.
Which is why it's weird that she's literally in it for like 4 minutes, if that.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.
So now we at a nearby podium, the announcer introduces Senator Joseph Carmichael, who is a large donor at the Historical Society.
1,000-year-old Melvin.
Right.
Why Melvin Douglas? That feels like a weird choice too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, he didn't need to be 90 years old.
An elderly dude to play the senator, I suppose.
He's fine. I love Melvin Douglas.
Yeah. Give me that Melvin Douglas action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A real charmer. Not in this one so much, but it's just what happens when you age.
Yep. So at home, John is awoken in the morning by a loud banging that fills the house, and then it ends.
Some real classic ghosting.
Yeah. So later, John plays a piano alone. The door behind him opens by itself. He thinks it's the maintenance man, but as he goes looking for him, he's startled when Mr. Tuttle, the maintenance man, walks in from outside.
And here's another character, the maintenance man, where you're like, why the fuck did you include this person? He's just a body in the room.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, he's there to be like, oh, well, no, it couldn't have been the maintenance man. It must have been a ghost.
All right, well.
Yeah. So now we get more like spooky sort of M.C. Escher style shots of the house. So this has all happened while John resumes playing. Later on, John reads while listening to the piece he played earlier, and Claire drops by with some pictures to put up. Claire finds the rubber ball in a cabinet that John brought with him. The topic of his daughter comes up awkwardly. Mm-hmm.
He says, that was Kathy's, my daughter. And my note says, whoops. Way to ruin the mood, Trish.
Yep. She didn't know. So they ride horses together.
Which apparently this is a stunt double, because George C. Scott was terrified of horses, which, look, I understand.
I get it, man. Horses will bite.
Dangerous creatures.
Yeah.
They are vicious and cruel.
But they're majestic beasts.
Hateful.
So I actually thought that he asked her if she was going running. And then she asks him if he also runs. And I thought to myself, most certainly
Okay. You're being polite, I think.
But as I said, it turns out that she rides horses. Then he has a flashback to his wife and daughter getting smashed by the dump truck.
10 banana cream pies. Yep.
So back home by himself, he sobs in bed while the banging sound returns.
Boy, does George C. Scott's fake crying make me uncomfortable.
Oh, man, yeah.
Thank God we're supernaturally pulled out of it because, whew.
Yeah, right. He and Mr. Tuttle check the basement. Tuttle suggests that it might be the furnace because old houses make noises. Oh, so later on, John leads a string quartet while playing piano. When the musicians are gone, John hears the sound of running water in his house, tracks it to the kitchen where the faucet is running.
Okay, here's where I actually have a bunch of things to say about this and the scenes that follow here. But like, he hears running water and he hears some noises and whatever. And he goes and looks, and there's always an explanation. Like, he goes into the kitchen and the water is running. Like, how about you hear the noise and the water's not running? That's scary. Not
oh my God,
the
yes.
thing you expect.
Exactly. Hollywood, fucking hire us. What are you waiting for?
And but these are like easy, simple things. Like, have you people ever seen a scary movie before? Because everything has an explanation and they drag you to that explanation as fast as they can.
Right. Because that was an element of the original story, which is like, oh, like this guy was always in the house and then the faucets were on by themselves. And it's like, well, okay, fucking hang on a second.
Yeah, maybe your fucking faucet's just running, man. It's an old house.
Your plumbing is a fucking system under pressure, man. And if you're living in an old house, I mean, this shit's going to fucking happen.
It is a miracle of science.
Yeah. God.
It's not going to work perfect every time. Why don't you appreciate anything?
Act like you know.
Like, everything is just like all the shit that happens in this scene, in the next couple scenes, everything is just a contrivance to get him to the attic. And it's like, why don't you find a more natural way to get him to the attic? If you were a better writer, you could.
Yeah.
And they don't. They're just like fucking pushing us there.
Oh, no. These guys, like the people who wrote this script, I think the only sort of script writing education that they got was they read Save the Cat.
And it's like, but it's, you know, it makes me think of that one review where like it seems like they're uncomfortable with the idea of supernatural. They're like, I don't know how to make this work. So instead, I'm just going to kind of like give you an explanation real quick for it. And it's like, well, then why don't you just have him wander up there? That's just as plausible as all this bullshit is.
Yeah. Like, because what ends up happening is he finds, he shuts off the faucet, and then he hears water running again, and he shuts off that one, and then he hears it again, which like draws him to, actually, no. I'm thinking of later on when he finds the attic, but like.
No, this is the next scene is he goes to the bathroom and it's the water running in the bathtub.
And then in the darkness, he sees a boy under the surface of the water.
And this scene is incredible because the incredible uninterest with which he reacts to this
Holy
moment.
Shit.
He sees
like,
a child's body.
Claire is going to see like the phantom wheelchair and have this look of sheer fucking terror on her face. He sees a little boy.
She's got to make up for it.
He sees a little boy submerged underwater in his bathroom, and it's just like, huh.
Yeah, his reaction is basically, was that always there? Huh. I'll ask Claire about it tomorrow. And he sort of just backs out of the room. Like, he really has no reaction, which is why it's like, you're Oscar winner George C. Scott. Why are you not acting right now?
You were acting your ass off in hardcore, man.
Yeah, like, it's so bizarre to be like, those tubs full. I don't remember putting a child in there. You know what? This is a tomorrow problem.
Yeah. So the next day, John visits the Historical Society to ask Claire if there's ever been a boy in the tub.
Hey, Claire, this is a weird question. I know you don't live there, and I know you probably weren't there last night, but last time you were there, in the master bath, did you notice anything in the tub? Yeah, like a hard water stain, a ghost of a dead child, any kind of mold, anything like that.
No. So another woman.
I do love this shot though, because I fucking love. I don't know what that style of architecture is called, but where that comes to a point, and it's just at the end of like not an intersection. What do you call that? Like where it ends on the end of a block, and the end of a block is not like a square.
Oh, I do not know.
And so like they're out on this like really incredible veranda.
Oh yeah, like the Flatiron Building in New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
There's got to be a name for it, but
listener,
I love that.
If you know, bring me the xpod@gmail.com.
I'm super interested, but I love the scene, and I don't really know why. And I feel like maybe it's just I'm envious of their veranda. I mean, I have a deck that is like 3 times the size of my tiny apartment. It's ridiculous, but I want a veranda that looks out over Vancouver.
Who doesn't? Whom amongst us? I will say that, like, again, like, you know what it is like, that's just, Medak has just composed a really compelling shot there. Like, he is a really talented, like, director in terms of,
which kind of makes me wonder, like, are you a photographer who just started directing movies?
It's entirely possible.
Because you frame shots really well.
Really well. Like, there's a ton of really fucking interesting photography. Like, when they want to tell you, like, this house is haunted, he's going to do something. Like, he's going to fucking point the camera from the 3rd floor straight down to the bottom floor, but present it to you like an MC Escher painting. Like, everything has, like, weird dimensions and shit. He's really good at creating an uncanny, spooky liminal space in that house. And like elsewhere in the movie, there's tons of that. That weird, weird building that the senator occupies. Like he shoots that really well too. Like he knows he's looking at something weird and he wants to make it look even weirder and just knows how to do it.
That's why it's such a shame that the script sucks so bad. Cause it's like, you've got this guy who's very talented at shooting, like either like, these sort of, like you said, like liminal spaces or these weird, like ethereal moments in the movie. He's great at setting the scene. It's just that the scenes as described and as written are boring and trite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jerks. Why'd you do this to me?
Yep. So another woman at the society gives him a hard time about living in that house. She implies that no one has been able to live there at length. It doesn't want people living in it, you see.
I do love that in this moment, they sort of flip the script a little bit where like usually in these haunted house movies, it's the husband who's like, you're just hysterical because you're a woman and it's that time of the month. There's no such thing as ghosts. Where in this, it's Claire who's just like, oh, big strapping George C. Scott. It's just that time of the month for you. I think you're just hysterical and seeing things, on account of.
Yeah. Their relationship dynamic is really interesting because I am sure that there were script drafts that forced them together into something romantic.
It feels that way the whole time. And obviously they have a very good chemistry because they're married.
Right. But in this movie, like they're just friends. Yeah. And I really like that about this movie because it does really sort of like shift the sort of the gender dynamic of it all, just like you mentioned, because like in The Hearse, which she did the same year, it's the other way around where like she's the crazy woman in a town full of like dudes who are all the guys from I Spit on Your Grave. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So back to the movie. Back at the house, John walks in.
I do love that. I love that they find a way to work the Harbinger in. They're like, it's Minnie, the Harbinger. Here you go.
Yeah.
And they do. She gives the whole like the house doesn't want people thing. And they really should have leaned into this. They just abandon it like 4 seconds later.
No, because she's the rat. She's the one who's in cahoots.
She's in on it.
Yeah. Bitch. So back at the house, John walks outside and one of the windows suddenly bursts outward, the pieces landing at his feet. The broken window is a window in the attic. So he goes inside to check it out, but amid the spooky ass hallways, he can't seem to find a door to the attic, only closets. So feeling around the wall of a closet, he feels a draft, pulls everything aside, pulling boards down, revealing a hidden door.
like you do when you're renting a historic home. You just grab a hammer and start ripping the walls out.
Right. He has to break a big lock to get in while the house is filled with the phantom banging sound. He struggles to open it, tries to force his way in when the door mysteriously opens on its own, welcoming him to a narrow, spooky stairway to the dusty, cobwebbed attic.
Yeah, for a man who's really unaffected by this house and really not all that interested in the dead boy in the bathtub, he can't wait to get into that attic.
Yeah,
and he looks more terrified climbing the stairs into the attic than when he saw a child's ghost in the bathtub.
Right. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Looking up there, I'm like, somebody fucking hid this stairway for a reason. Looking up there is no lights. It's dark as fuck. I'm not going up there.
Yeah, not my house, not my problem.
You remember the basement of the house we lived in Atlantic Ave?
I should. I remember the door. I remember the stairs that went down to it. I can't tell you a fucking thing about it, though.
Same deal. I went down there, we lived there for years. I went down there 3 times. That fucking basement was terrifying.
Listen, New England, I got a question for you. You got all this space under the house. Why do you got to make it creepy?
It was a low ceiling, dirt floors, and it had 3 chambers. And I remember this because the very first time the 3 of us, when we moved in, the 3 of us, you, me, and Bridget went and went further back, and it got wicked dark in that second chamber. And then we went back into the 3rd chamber, and it got so fucking dark that it seemed like the darkness was consuming the fucking light. The vibe in that basement was so bad that I never went back.
Because here's what you keep down there. You keep boxes of old Halloween decorations. You keep many cans or bottles of peaches.
Right.
You keep
a proper root cellar.
Keep mother's body. That's it. You don't have room for anything else.
No. I do remember there was a little folding table in that final back room with a notebook on it that just had 4 names in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
make of that what you will.
Yeah, 4 names, and then he got caught. Okay.
Yep.
The I have to say, the cobweb work in this attic,
impeccable set dressing, you guys.
It looks like no one's been up there for 2,000 years.
It's like Indiana Jones has never seen cobwebs like this. Now, among the stuff he finds there are some toys and a music box, which he takes downstairs, plays alongside a recording of a song that he composed just recently, having never heard the melody before.
Old-timey toys are real depressing.
Yeah. But that was a plot element that I really liked, that I wish had gone somewhere else. The fact that he just was possessed to play this song, and then he kind of comes upon it later on in the music box. Fucking cool as hell. Again, it fucking amounts to nothing.
Yeah, here's what we keep saying. There's a bunch of cool ideas in this movie, except they didn't seem to think they were cool ideas.
Yeah, they just didn't follow through on it.
Yeah.
So now Claire visits him again and informs him that nothing weird has happened in the house ever.
And Claire in every scene in this movie looks so damp. And I don't mean that in a sexy way. I just mean her face is
it's the Pacific
sweaty.
Northwest. It's damp all the time.
That's true. It's humid.
Yeah.
That's right.
If it's not raining, it's misty. I've seen Twin Peaks.
If it's not raining, it's misty. The George C. Scott story.
John suggests that all the phantom stuff happening around the house was meant to drive him to the attic. They go up and they look around together, recover a child's journal and a wheelchair.
He says, whatever it is, it's desperately trying to communicate with me. And my note says, I don't know about desperately. It's banging on the pipes. You're not really paying attention.
Right. It full on shows itself to you. And you were just like, I should probably ask about that.
You're like, it wasn't in the lease.
No.
This dead naked child wasn't in the lease.
No, there's also a wheelchair sized for a child, a real spooky old school one.
And they focus a lot of attention. Was this written by older people? They focus a lot of attention on the weirdest shit where they're like, it's a wheelchair, but it's so small. And it's like, yeah, sometimes children need wheelchairs. What's so fucking weird about that?
I know. They're
How
all,
about the dead boy in the bathtub?
You know what? They're all reminded of the fucking polio epidemic.
It's true.
And they were just like, that alone is just going to send shivers down their spines.
Mm-hmm.
So, after they leave, the wheelchair moves on its own. So John runs through the history of the house at the Historical Society, notices that everyone who lived in the place before him stayed there for only a couple of years at most. The mystery seems to be about who lived in the house prior to 1920. And
I'm going to tell you something right now. That is the mystery that would have been the absolute easiest to solve. Who lived in the house in 1909? Well, it's a giant fancy mansion in a part of the country that had barely been settled by 1909. The house has a fucking name.
It does.
It should not be that hard to figure this out.
No. So they look at the newspaper from 1909 on microfiche.
I love the old microfiche
Damn
machines.
it. I love a microfiche.
It's not the same anymore.
Nah. And they turn up news about a little girl who was killed accidentally with initials like those on the journal they found. Now, this is a detail that I don't remember. I don't understand how this was supposed to. It was a MacGuffin
Because
or something like that.
It goes no. There are so many MacGuffins in this. I lost count. Like the haunting itself is kind of a MacGuffin. Like this part of this story. What I don't even remember her name. Clara, something like that. It feels like it was probably something from another draft. Because it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it just happens that like a child died near this house and she was the same age as your young, inappropriately young child, George C. Scott. And then she died the same way. And they're like, but anyway, it's not that. Don't worry about it. You're moving on. It's a different ghost. It's
God,
not
I
like
did
your
not
child.
make that connection. Because, her whole thing is like she was struck by a carriage or something like that.
And I think this is also maybe a nod to to a haunting, or not a haunting, the haunting, and maybe to Winchester House. Wasn't there a child that died?
I don't think so.
I feel like it's pulled from something else, but like it is so bizarre that they're just like, oh, and then this, but yeah, never mind.
Yeah. John is becoming obsessed with the mystery. Claire's like, maybe you ought to move out. Maybe go stay with your friends.
I mean, look, you have no obligation to this ghost. The way he digs into this mystery is just like, it's bad. It's more bad writing. Like you could give me 4 sentences to help me understand why John is so fixated on solving this mystery. And they don't. He finds a body in a well and he's just like, I have to be the one to solve this. It's like, dude, you just showed up from the other side of the country.
I know.
Why you?
I know. At home, he looks over pictures of his family when the rubber ball mysteriously comes bouncing down the steps. That night, he drives out to a bridge and, like a normal man, drops the ball off the bridge.
It's innocent man.
And when he returns home, the ball comes bouncing back down the steps again and stops at his feet. It's all wet
New
and
and shiny and beautiful.
Yeah. So at the university, he stops by the psychic research department, the thing which definitely existed at the time, and talks to a cartoon character version of a parapsychologist who suggests staging a seance.
Yep. Like normal people.
And this guy has the most hilarious German accent. We must hold a seance.
He is what you'd call a cuckoo crazy.
Yeah.
And so they get the medium, Gene Stapleton.
Yeah, when the medium arrives, John and some guests, including Claire, they shut the lights off and they ready the tape recorder to tape the proceedings.
She's got real Archie energy.
Jesus Christ, now that you say it. The medium walks around the house, just finding her way to the spooky-ass attic.
Just touching everything. She's doing that fucking Lorraine Warren shtick.
Oh, yeah.
That bullshit where she would just like brush the walls.
There's demons. I've never felt an evil presence so hard in my life. And
well, you have the devil in your parlor.
And then he's going to come along and say, listen, I know a guy who could write a book about this. I'll get my agent in touch with.
We have a priest in Connecticut who can help you. Don't worry about names. Names aren't important.
No. So commence the seance. They all silently watch her do her thing. She tells them that the ghost in the house is talking to him because of his loss.
It is an egregious waste of paper.
That is not, first of all, that's not how you do automatic writing.
Nope.
Doors are opening on their own. There's a lot of great handheld camera work.
I do like that she's not super flashy about it.
Yeah. She is a very understated. In any other fucking movie, she would have been Tangina Barrows.
Yeah, and now here, like, who directed this scene? Get him to direct the rest of the movie. Get that guy.
Right. So, she says that the ghost is a child. They ask its name while she scribbles. Joseph. It wants to talk to John. It repeatedly asks for help until the medium's trance crashes out.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Joseph chucks a glass across the room, and my note says, "God damn it, Joseph, that's an antique."
Priceless crystal.
Mm-hmm.
They continue the seance with this weird silver cone. Are you familiar with it? You've done some shit about like spiritualism and stuff. I've never, ever seen this in a seance, and I am fairly in touch with the paranormal world.
No, I think they just needed a prop, and everyone was just like, well, what do you have at seances? And they're like, I don't know. What do we have on the set?
Right.
They just grabbed like that.
Towering cone out of tinfoil.
Yeah, because all the props that are involved in seances, because seances are basically just sleight of hand, everything.
Yeah.
And so like they all serve a purpose. That doesn't serve any kind of purpose.
You know, maybe what the problem was is they wanted to do like a table wrapping thing, but it just wasn't visual enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That could be. They also, like, this is not a special effects heavy movie at all.
No, not at all.
Until they light the house on fire.
So they continue the seance with this weird silver cone in the middle of the table, which rattles around as the medium talks until it tips over. And that's when the dish goes flying. Yeah. And then the attic door ominously closes. So now after the seance, John reviews the tape and reveals EVP recordings of the ghost's voice.
I hate this part so much.
I do too, mostly just because it starts out very well.
Yes.
Like, it's because like the voice is just a whisper. They're like,
and it's like,
did you die in this house? And you just hear, yes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and then all of a sudden it's like, who's the woman who did Rocky the Squirrel's voice? It's basically that. And the more they ask these questions, it eventually, like, the voice of Joseph starts speaking in like complete sentences, and it's like, okay, this isn't scary anymore. It's not even spooky anymore. No. Like at first it's like, yes, murder, and like, but then it's like, my father, he drowned me in the bathtub. It's upstairs. Do you know how to get there? It's right at the top of the stairs. He's a landing. You take a left. You know what? If the lock's there, just grab a hammer and bang that shit off.
If you need to, you may have to pull the shelving down.
Seriously, it's like, God damn it. You don't even let us sit with discomfort or abstract for more than a few seconds before you're like, moving on.
Because here's the thing. Like, even though I think like ghost hunting is bullshit, I fucking love EVP recordings. I love them. They're so fucking spooky.
And like, it starts out that way, and then it'll just like speed it up. We got to get moving, everybody. And so he's just like, well, here's what happened. It was a Tuesday night in 1909, and I was taking a bath. Yeah. God.
Yeah. We used to call them bees. Give me 5 bees for a quarter, they say.
It's like, oh, why are you doing this to me? It's like, when you, it's those moments in like a David Cronenberg movie where I'm like, you're so close. Why are you doing this?
I know. So yeah,
and if it's Joseph's ghost, what the hell is the point of the Cora thing? It's like a misdirect that they just abandon immediately.
Right. But yeah, bottom line, the ghost tells them that his father killed him. We cut to an Evil Dead style handheld shot shooting through the house to the attic, where a man grabs a boy in a bathtub by his legs and drowns him while the boy bangs on the side of the tub.
Which is a very strange thing, because that is a way of killing somebody.
Yeah.
I don't remember what that's called.
It's like in the same way that like the death of John's family was like abrupt and very sudden and like brutal. This is too, like, because this is an upsetting scene, because it's like a nude child in a bathtub, and it's not just like, you think like, okay, you're gonna drown somebody in a movie, you hold their head under or whatever, but he doesn't. He grabs him by the legs and pulls. And this is a way, because there was the Brides in the Bath. Have you ever heard that story? No.
It was it wasn't really a serial killer. He was killing wives, essentially. But like, it makes it look like the person drowned, because whatever it does, it causes something to happen where you pass out temporarily because of like the way your body is pulled and the way it hits, like goes underwater. And like, I don't know if it's like, it just does something like physiologically, it does something to your body where you lose consciousness for whatever reason. And like, it's just a really brutal moment. The kid's banging on the side of the bathtub. It's like, Jesus Christ, there's no banana cream pies here. This is just a child murder.
Right. So at the crescendo, he announces that his name is Joseph Carmichael, the same name as the senator.
Here's my social security number and also my address. And here was my locker combination at school.
My checking account pin is all zeros. I know I should change it, but who has time?
It was 9999.
So John, looking over the automatic writing, isn't looking too good, stumbles out of the dining room, calls Claire, but passes out before he can say much.
Yeah, he's having a heart attack because he's 82 years old.
he smokes, drinks scotch, and eats steak, and that's it.
Yeah, it's the Tom Atkins diet.
Yep. So she comes to his aid, listens to the tape, which reduces her to tears, and then she wigs out.
Like, this is an inappropriate. Like, look, would it be a sad story that a child died that you can't even confirm yet? That it's just you think a child died. She is downright hysterical.
I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt simply because it is spooky. Okay. So in context of the movie, because then she's suddenly stricken with terror. Like she sees the child's wheelchair at the top of the steps. And I love that look on her face. Because
she's good.
Like
she's a good
that look
actor.
says to me, like, you should be scared too. And like, if there's a little sudden chill, like when that happens. So yeah.
And this is when they're like, well, what do we do? Do we tell the Carmichael about this story? And it's like, no, man, you don't tell him about this story.
Move on with your fucking life.
Yeah. That is a thoroughly destabilizing thing to say to somebody.
So later, John, like a normal man, just an innocent man, watches Senator Carmichael enter his office tower. He's just stalking him now.
Yeah, Senator, it's like I should be writing my music or whatever, but it's a slow day.
I know. The shitty lady from the Historical Society calls him to tell him that John and Claire have been going through the files related to the house.
This bitch.
And John and Claire compare notes. The son, little Joseph Carmichael, was sickly and crippled, according to his research. Joseph's father sent him overseas to be treated, but what he really did was kill the kid, bury the body on the Carmichael ranch, and pick one out from the local orphanage who looked close enough to him. And after some years away, he brought the kid back, the public none the wiser, and his health greatly improved because he was healed. The mystery remains. Why?
They sort of give this like really convoluted explanation at the end, but it's like and everything you just said makes no sense to me.
But also that we're starting to enter this kind of like conspiracy turf where like the lady calls him and is like, just so you know, Senator, they're looking into the house, and he's like, oh no.
Yeah. All of a sudden it's the conversation and you're like, wait, what happened to the ghosts?
And then, but then like, cause the way things are going to shake out, he's going to be like also completely ignorant of what is going on. So like, who gives a fuck?
What's with all of this? Like, again, it feels like they're just pulling on what's popular, because this is a very high 70s movie.
Oh shit!
And like they're pulling on what's popular.
Lot of, like 3 Days of the Condor type stuff,
right? Parallax View, 3 Days of the Condor, like all this conspiracy paranoia stuff. Like what is it, John Schlesinger, and like all that shit. And I also wonder, so there are several sort of high profile stories about children being replaced, and I wonder if at this time, like one or two of them had come to public knowledge. Okay. So there's the story that I just wrote this one for the thing. Bobby Dunbar. You ever heard that story?
I've not heard that one.
This is a kid in Louisiana in like 1911, I think. They're like camping in some like swamp basically, and he disappears. And like, there's this big, massive manhunt that goes on for like 9 months. And all of a sudden, like, they find a child who I guess kind of vaguely looks like him. And essentially what happens is like that family kidnaps this other woman's child.
What? And
raises him as her own.
Holy shit.
And it's it's a very sad story. It's nuts though. And it's just like, how can this happen? And then there's that other one they made the movie, the Angelina Jolie movie about.
Oh God, right.
No, I think it's called The Changeling.
Also called The Changeling.
And like there was that story where like her son was actually murdered by Stuart Northcott.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, here he is right here. And she's like, that's not my kid. He doesn't look anything like my kid. And they're like, okay, well, the mental institution for you then.
Oh my God.
You didn't like our solution, I guess.
What a weird fucking thing.
I just wonder, like, that is an insane thing to be like, no, it's your child. Here you go. Like, what? No. Why? No.
Good God, I know.
But I wonder if, like, there was something that in the zeitgeist at the time that was like, this shit actually has happened before.
That's crazy.
Like,
yeah,
for,
that must have.
For not necessarily for nefarious reasons. Sometimes it's for like shame, like whatever. Like, again, Americans are fucking bizarre and monstrous. So could be for any reason. But I just wonder if something was happening at the time that people were like, this would make sense in a way.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it just seems really far-fetched.
Right. Yeah. So they do more research and they find a house built on the property of the former Carmichael Ranch where the body was likely buried. More information surfaces. Richard Carmichael, the father, was unlikely to inherit his Joseph's mother's fortune. Richard, saddled with a sick kid who wouldn't live to 18, wouldn't see a dime of that inheritance if the kid died young, so he killed the kid and brought in a new one to fake out the mother's family and bring in all that sweet moolah.
Yeah, it's rich people stuff, everybody. Forget about it. It's rich people stuff.
So John and Claire return to the house on the former property where he explains to the owner what he'd like to do.
Hey, I got a question for you. Someone shows up at your house in the middle of the night and they say, I suspect, with no evidence.
Now, hear me out. I live in a haunted house, and we had a seance, and they told me that there is a body buried under the floorboards of this very house. Now, give me a chance here. Hear me out.
Yeah. TLDR, can I cut up the floor and dig into the foundation of your house? Please. And the answer is obviously, sure, go ahead.
No, her answer is, I got to think about it.
Mm-hmm. And then she says, well, it's funny that you tell me this story because the other night, my daughter woke up in the middle of the night and she said there was a very small, very thin, almost gnome-like boy. And I thought, well, no, I've seen the flashback. He just looks like a normal little boy. What do you mean gnome-like?
Now, as ridiculous as this premise is, again, this is spooky as fuck.
Yeah, I want that movie.
And just kind of putting myself there thinking, what would I do if I woke up in the middle of the night and instead of the fucking carpet on my bedroom floor, there was a boy drowning under the surface of the water?
Yeah, you'd be like, oh dear, I ate too many Twizzlers last night.
I shouldn't have eaten those poppers.
This is bad. This is really bad.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So that night, the little girl in question gets up and walks to her room, staring directly at the camera like a spooky little kid. In a room, we see what she saw the other night. A terrified look comes over her face and she screams. And under the floor, we see the boy submerged in water.
But again, just a normal boy, just an innocent boy.
Not gnome-like.
He's not gnome-like. He's small and thin in that way that children are small and thin, I guess.
Yep,
I don't want to fat shame anybody, but
just an innocent boy.
Yeah, it's so bizarre that they keep like edging towards like, hey, you like spooky movies? Well, we don't.
Yeah, how you like that, you idiot? So the next day, John...
Why don't you watch a better movie, you rube?
The next day, John gets to work chopping up the floor in the little girl's room, digging down in the well that hides under the floorboards. They find
just
nothing.
Sifting through, finds a human hand.
Yeah, until he moves some dirt, reveals the skeletal hand of a child.
And again, this is not the kind of thing that you just send your ordinary George C. Scott down to do. Like you have a team of experts that know how to do this.
At best, that dude's gonna have the meat sweats on site.
Yeah.
He's gonna have a heart attack, and then you gotta pull his body out as well as the body of the boy.
He has contaminated that entire well because he has been coughing since he got to the third rung of the ladder.
So the police arrive and excavate the rest of the remains, and John is evasive when asked who they might belong to.
It's so weird because the guy's like, do you know who this might be? And he gives him this really strange smile and is like, nope, no idea. And it's like, wait, are you fucking with me? Why are you smiling right now? You do know? Is that why you're smiling?
Have you ever seen that SNL bit with Bill Hader, the mystery of the chopped up guy?
No.
Yeah. He's the host of is it 2020? Or he's the host of Dateline, who always seems a little too excited about the murders that he's talking about.
Is that Keith Morrison?
Yes, yes.
But sometimes, every now and then, murder comes to your house.
Yeah. So, when the cops have left, he breaks back into the house, actually smashing out this poor lady's window.
Speaking of inappropriate, the lady said you could cut into her floor and dig into her well, not smash her windows and lurk around like a weirdo in the middle of the night. That costs extra.
So the reason that they're down there, and I don't think they make this very clear from the start, because I was like, why is he going back there? But the whole reason that he's there is he's convinced that there's supposed to be some pendant there. And they didn't find it when they found the remains, and so he goes back and like digs
to sift around through the loosest, softest dirt I've ever seen. It's like a pillow of dirt.
You could sleep on it. It looks so comfy.
You could plant any beautiful flowers in there.
Yep. So many.
And as luck would have it,
I know.
As luck would have it, little ghost magic.
Yeah, he's about to give up when the pendant magically unearths itself before his very eyes.
Mm-hmm. This pendant that he pulls out of the cold, wet ground where it has been for 70 years, and it is as pristine as the day it was made.
It's ghost shit, man. Don't question it.
Again, we're going to undermine the whole thing in that he later says, well, I can't go to because she's like, why don't you go to the police, you fucking weirdo? Yeah. And he's like, I can't go now. They'll never believe me. And it's like, well, maybe you should have thought of that before you broke into that lady's house in the middle of the night, you lunatic.
I know, because now he's going to have to be like, listen, I should have told you this before. And they're going to be like, did you break that fucking window too? And he's going to be like, yes.
I'm like, all right, I was here last night. And they're like, oh, really? Did you put that metal in the ground and maybe find it in the dirt yourself? And he's like, no, it's ghost magic.
Yeah, so she's like, listen, go to the cops, will you? But he resists, insisting that he be the one to bust the senator, because we're still in conspiracy mode here.
Here's what you need to do, Claire. You're like, John, I am just getting over a bad relationship. This was fun for a while, but it's getting really weird.
I know.
Things feel dangerous now, and you're talking about writing letters to senators. I think I need to spend some time by myself.
He doesn't even tell her that, because what he does is he does something that would get you shot the fuck down. Oh,
you mean the good old days when you could just drive out onto the tarmac and charge a senator's plane like some maniac?
Running at him with his hand out with this pendant dangling from it.
Yeah, just visions of Jonestown everywhere.
Yeah, he rushes the plane, flashes the metal, but he's dragged away by security. Carmichael looks disturbed by this. He orders his men to have a police captain named DeWitt call him and reveals that he's wearing a similar pendant.
But this is like, that's the extent of it. Is he's like, pilot of this plane, who is also for some reason my secretary, I guess, I need you to call this guy. And that's the end of it, where they're just like, John, you go home. You're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you just charged at a senator getting on a plane. At the very least, the police should have some questions for you in the moment.
I know. So John arrives home to find every door in the house slamming on its hinges, and then he's visited by Battlestar Galactica's Gaius Baltar, the aforementioned Captain DeWitt, who's there to shake him down and threaten him about being at the airport earlier.
And really what just happens is it's just two old white guys looking at each other really intensely like they're about to explode, and then it ends.
He's like, yeah, I think you have something that the senator wants. And, I don't want to say nothing's going to happen, but you don't hand that over, you might end up at the funny farm.
Yeah, and then he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just like, what is happening?
So, now Claire shows up. She interrupts the shakedown. If John doesn't give up the goods, DeWitt is coming back with a search warrant, baby.
Yeah, and it's like, and he's like, well, Claire, he thinks I'm blackmailing him. And it's like, yeah, because you just fucking showed up at his plane shouting weird accusations and shaking a cheap metal in his face.
I know.
What is he supposed to think?
Fucking Christ. So more bad news comes as John's lease has been canceled and Claire lost her job at the Historical Society.
Yeah, and she's like, they didn't give an explanation. It's like, Claire, do you need an explanation for either one of those?
This guy has ruined your fucking life.
Yeah, come on. You're a smart lady, Claire. You don't need this. No. Yeah, sure. You're sweaty and damp most of the time, and I don't understand why that is, but some people are into that.
So then a mirror breaks in the house, sending John a grim vision of DeWitt with blood dripping down his face.
This is where I don't understand, where the movie takes a weird hard turn, where all of a sudden they're like, oh, right, haunting. I guess it's supposed to be menacing, because all of a sudden the house becomes a threat and the ghost becomes a threat for no reason. Ostensibly no reason.
This is third act shit where they're like, well, I don't know how the fuck we're going to end this.
They're like, well, how did Amityville Horror end? Do that.
You're right. So and he's like, what do you want from me?
What are you waiting for?
Yeah. And so, back in Seattle. Oh, anyways, Claire calls him like after a little while to report that DeWitt's car flipped apropos and nothing, and DeWitt had blood dripping down his face, is dead.
If I were a cop, I would start to be very suspicious, because it's like, for two people who have nothing to do with these crimes, so you say, y'all seem to be showing up every time something bad happens.
Yeah,
like at the end of the movie when fucking the Carmichael dies, they're just at his house for some reason.
Right. They just show up. So back in Seattle, Senator Carmichael, Senator Carmichael lands and learns of DeWitt's death. And then back at his manor, he sends for John. Claire, unable to reach John at home, heads over to his place. The senator receives John, expecting blackmail. Instead, John tells him that the house is haunted and reveals the pendant, and then explains what he thinks happened to the real Joseph Carmichael. He calls
now,
him,
you see, John, this is why you don't confront people with traumatizing information. It doesn't usually go very well. Right. Let a therapist do this.
Yeah, he calls him a changeling in this scene, and then Carmichael sits down and opens a checkbook. But honestly, what else is he supposed to think in this situation?
That's what I mean. He's like, well, I don't know why he thinks I'm blackmailing him. It's like, well, because you're a fucking crazy person. That's
clear what John's mission is in this scene,
or why he gives a shit to begin with.
I know. So when he
all they ever had to say was like, John is obviously avoiding the grief and trauma of his daughter and his wife. Well, okay, really just his daughter. He doesn't really care about the wife. Of them dying. And so he's throwing himself sort of headlong into this thing in order to avoid dealing with that trauma and that grief. That's all you have to say. Otherwise, it's just like, why the fuck is he doing any of this? Just get another apartment and be done with it.
Oh, I know. So when John refuses payment, the senator turns him out, insisting that his father was a great man. John leaves.
Okay, your father was a man in the late 19th century. I'm going to go ahead and say he was definitely not a great man.
He was a wealthy man in the late 19th century.
He raped at least one person. And I know he killed at least one person.
So then John leaves the seance tapes with him and he splits. So now Claire returns to the haunted house and is welcomed as the doors open on their own. Lights of the place are all on, but there's no John, only phantom noises and spooky camera angles.
So for some reason now, I guess because maybe they failed to adequately solve this murder, which I would argue they did actually solve the murder.
They solved it. They figured out the whole fucking thing.
But now the ghost of this child is pissed, so he's going to kill John's girlfriend to get revenge?
Maybe, because this is the thing. This is where the movie completely breaks down, is because there is no stated objective when it comes to this.
Well, it's just a tone.
Wants them to know what happened to it. Well, mission accomplished. Stop fucking banging doors.
And why, now that you've achieved that, are you becoming more aggressive and like malignant?
Right.
Like it just becomes like, it's such a weird tone shift and a weird character change where like, to the extent that Joseph is a character in the movie, like he's like the ghost of a little boy.
Yeah.
Who's just sort of trying to tell an adult what is happening. And then all of a sudden it's like a malevolent spirit at the end of the movie out of nowhere.
Right. It's the fucking end of Amityville where like all hell's got to break loose. And
I'm guessing someone was probably either watching the dailies or whatever, reading the script and came back and they were like, yeah, but what about the ghost? I thought you said this was a ghost story. Isn't the ghost supposed to be scary? Aren't those scary stories? And they're like, oh, okay. What if the ghost, I guess, set the house on fire?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. Why though? And they're like, oh, because we spent $250,000 building a facade of a mansion, and tearing it down just seems like such an arduous process.
So yeah, Claire is drawn to the upper levels of the house where she thinks she hears John talking. It leads her to the attic where the wheelchair turns and chases her down the steps.
And this is the first time that anyone responds appropriately to a supernatural event.
Right. John arrives out of nowhere and they leave together. He goes back in to yell at the ghost, struggling against strong wind to climb the stairs. He's blown off the second floor by a strong gust of wind as the house catches fire. But back,
also, what's Poltergeist? Is that 81 or 80?
That's 82. No,
or 82. Okay,
was it 82? It was 82. Yeah.
Okay, because this has an end of Poltergeist feeling as well.
You know what it reminded me of is without the rain inside the house, it reminded me of the end of Amityville 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is a year later. Back at the senator's place, he studies the pendants as the boy's ghostly voice calls to him and shakes his desk. Somehow.
So the rest of this movie makes fucking zero sense.
I take umbrage with this at the highest degree.
So Joseph is not strong enough to solve his own murder or even alert John to his presence, and yet somehow he can wreak havoc from afar.
Yeah.
To, I don't know, get revenge against now this imposter. Like, none of this shit makes any sense.
No,
anymore.
because what happens is he is teleported to the house.
Yeah, what? Why is he in the house?
He's
actually not in the house.
Right. He climbs the flaming steps to the attic as the house collapses all around him. The chandelier falls, nearly crushing John as the senator continues to climb the stairs. John and Claire leave the house.
Here's what I can say. John, it is a great thing that they canceled your lease because you have a really hard time explaining any of this. You've got a dead senator and a mansion in flames.
Upside to losing the lease, this disaster is not on him.
Yeah. A dead senator and a mansion in flames. The Ted Kennedy story.
When the senator arrives at the attic, he finds the place reverted to little Joseph's room.
But why is he there in the first place? Because he's also in his office in that giant fucking office building.
Because that's the thing is we flash. So he witnesses the murder and he realizes what happens. And then we flash back and he's just back in his office.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just all a little much. The attic suddenly explodes and the senator drops dead in his office. And then John and Claire arrive at the senator's house.
John and Claire are there.
For some fucking reason.
In a way that is not at all suspicious.
I know. They're there to see the ambulance dudes bring the body out.
We've got a dead cop. We have a house in flames. And now we have a dead senator. And who's there in all of them? Composer John and his girlfriend.
Right. The ambulance flies past the burning Carmichael estate as not a single person thinks to try to put it out.
Yep.
In the morning, we visit the charred husk of the house. Only the wheelchair and the music box remain. The music box pops open on its own and plays. Roll them credits, baby.
Oh, my God. Well,
Now, it sounds like we've been shitting on this movie for an hour and a half. I want to be clear. I enjoy this movie. It is just packed with just inexplicable shit.
This is what happens when you engage with a movie in a more critical way. It's like, wait a minute, this movie doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is a solid movie. No shade. I mean, it is just the script makes no fucking sense. The haunting makes no fucking sense. Nothing makes any sense. It's just it's a director doing his best with what he's got. Mm-hmm. It's a cast trying to sort of make it all kind of work. It doesn't work. I still like it, but I just want to be clear here. I think we've laid it out and diagrammed it properly. This movie's a fucking mess.
Yeah. And this is where I would ask you, does this movie hold up? But I think the answer to that is very easy in that there's nothing in this movie that is offensive or, it doesn't age well. Like it's a ghost story through and through, except for when it kind of departs into a weird paranoid thriller for a minute or two.
It is very easily one of like probably the most moderate of all of the sort of haunted house movies. It's completely agnostic from a religious sense. Most of them all had a very clear like Christian motive behind them.
Yeah, you never hear ancient Indian burial ground uttered once.
Yeah, there's no priests, there's no clergy. It's just a murder mystery. It's high Gothic without really having an understanding of Gothic fiction.
Yeah, who wrote Lady in White? What's a...
Oh, Robert LaLoggia?
No, the story.
Oh, I don't know. Robert LaLoggia.
It's got
Frank LaLoggia is what I meant. Robert Loggia.
It's got
Loggia.
Robert Loggia.
L for Loggia. O for, oh my God, it's Robert Loggia.
Robert Loggia. No, it's got that like very British Gothic, like it's not overly religious. It's more like a windswept moor kind of thing.
Yes, for sure.
And so it's like, it ages fine. It holds up fine. It's a little, it's very high 70s, low 80s. Like it's got that aesthetic. It's just fucking sloppy. It's so sloppy, and it tries to give you two stories, and in doing that, it doesn't really deliver on either one.
Yeah, neither of them really mesh. It starts to edge into this like paranoid conspiracy thing, and then they're just abandon that, even though all parties are sort of playing their roles. I don't know. It's just by the end, they're like, we just got to end this shit. We're apparently the early cuts of this movie were very, very long.
I mean, it feels pretty long as is. And it's really only an hour and a half.
It is 100 minutes long. It feels like it's 3 hours long.
Yeah. And I know, having said all that, I do think people should watch this movie. I think there are not enough of these. There's not enough of this kind of like British influence, like old Victorian Gothic stories. I love those stories. I love the vibe. And that's really what you're there for, I guess, is the vibe. And you're going to get it in
this
space.
Movie has vibe out the ass.
Yeah. I think that Maddox a pretty, I don't know if I'd say he's talented. He's a very competent director.
Very competent, very capable. I like the fact that like he tries to make this movie look interesting.
Yeah. And it is for the most part. I think they do some tricks that look good. I think the score for this is great. It gets a little heavy handed sometimes, but it's the 80s. So, do with that what you will. Yeah, I mean, I think people should see it. It's a representation of a style that was not popular at the time, really. It really fallen out of favor and would just continue to fall out of favor. And so it's a rarity. I think George C. Scott's a weird choice, probably a bad choice.
He's the least compelling. He's the least compelling character in the movie, and that sucks because he's the main character. Yeah,
and he's the main character in a movie that doesn't have that many characters in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it sounds like we trashed it. I really do genuinely like watching this movie. I enjoy it. But it is an incoherent mess.
It really is. Yeah.
But that, having said that, so are a lot of the movies I really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. I love a messy bitch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, The Changeling, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
See it. So what's coming up next? Where are we going next?
Speaking of messy bitches, as you said up top, we got 99-cent rental in the next week. Going to be taking a crack at the super nutty rock opera ? That's also sort of a drug epidemic movie, but also includes a lot of roller skating and shiny outfits. It's The Apple. That's a good one.
Catherine Mary Stewart.
Yeah, I do love her. So we got that. That's coming up next week. And then the week after, the greasy, grimy, proto-slasher Catholic panic film, Alice, Sweet Alice.
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, God, I cannot wait. That movie is so fucked up.
I got a lot to say about that one. It's a little bit homophobic in a way that I do not care for, but
that one character, good God, man.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a rough movie. It's a rough movie.
Deeply upsetting movie. It's like the grimy flip side to Don't Look Now.
Yeah. It is pretty baby Brooke Shields.
Yep.
In a way that you don't like.
Right. All right. So be back here in a week as we're going to laugh our asses off at The Apple. And then be back in 2 as we get real weird with it. Alice, Sweet Alice.